Hello, Bootstrappers.
Hello, bootstrappers.
Hey, bootstrappers.
Hi, today we've got with us Ryan Reisert. He's written a really cool book that we're going to talk about, Outbound Sales, No Fluff. He teaches people how to do cold calling or outbound sales more effectively, which even I both have done personally, and it's really hard the first time you do it. You feel like, I don't know, how'd you feel when you first cold call someone, Eva?
All right, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on, and key to it all, like we found was like it's not personal, right? It's just a process you got to run. And I was like, before this call started, Brian, man, I wish we had this book because you had two technical founders, and we ended up driving a lot of the sales because we naturally listened to what the problem was, but trying to figure out how to articulate to like a sales team so we could like replicate it. Man, it was hard.
So Ryan, what got you into this, and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I think most people who've become successful in sales or even entrepreneurship in a lot of ways, they never thought that that was what they're going to do. Right? It was just, I was literally listening to a podcast today from Tim Ferriss, and like he did so many crazy things growing up that led him to be where he is today. And it wasn't because he wanted to be an entrepreneur, he wanted to be in sales, but like he went down that path of stumbling into sales and then stumbling in entrepreneurship, and that's where he is today. And I'm like those, right? Like those, which are probably many of us who, hang the banner of sales in their, the career path and maybe entrepreneur after the fact is, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. I grew up in a pretty rough, background, right? But both my brother and sister are felons, multiple felons, right? My parents are janitors. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I never thought I was going to go to college. In fact, I thought I was going to go to the military, but I had a ton of friends and cousins and whatnot that ended up going to the war because I graduated in 2004. So
All right, in the middle of it.
when I was going through, I was in JROTC. Everybody that I knew was like, "Hey, Ryan, you're too smart to go and deal with this stuff. Like, you should go this direction." And then I just stumbled upon one of my high school girlfriend's moms, like, "You got to go to college." And so I just went to college. Like I stumbled into going to college. And then in college, the only thing that I knew what to do was I was really good at math. Like I from the very young age, I was advanced in math. So they kept throwing me through like learning how to code on TI-89 calculators and things like that. I wasn't on this path, but I guess I'm pretty good at math. So by the time I graduated high school, I had already done like, it was like multiple levels of calculus and things like that. So I got a college scholarship for math. I should go do that. So I stumbled into college, and then with that scholarship, I decided to become a teacher because all these people that influenced me. I was like, okay, well, I was an athlete. I love math and engineering and things like that. Like maybe I can go influence others to get out of this like noise. So that's what I was going to go back and do. And I graduated in 2008. Another great time in our world to get out of school. Yeah, like the whole world was blowing up, and I went back home to do my student teaching. But like all my friends and a lot of people that I grew up with were like either in jail or on drugs, and it just wasn't a good environment for me. And folks that I went to school with had some internships in San Francisco. I went and visited them once during the summer between student teaching and graduation student teaching. Went down to San Francisco, and there was like Porsches parked on the side of the road.
It was crazy. I was out there then. It was nuts.
You know it. Yes. Well, right? Like there were like Porsches were like the Honda Civic where I grew up, right? Like Fast and the Furious Honda Civic. There were Porsches in San Francisco. I saw a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I can't remember which one it was, but like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini parked on a meter. Like on a meter, not like I mean, I was like, what is this place? I have to be here. That's where
how can I get me some?
Yeah. How do I get here? And so I just stuffed all of that education I did. I was going to go help a lot of people, and I'll still get there at some point. I still am passionate about that. But I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go, I'm going to get down here. So I sold everything that I owned at that time, which wasn't much. I packed my stuff up into a 86 Toyota 4Runner and drove down to San Francisco, and that's what I did.
So what was your first startup that you worked with?
So the very first startup that I worked with was backed by AIG. Mm-hmm. This was 2008 again. $50 million startup. And it's super exciting, right? I did this home financing, like new product. It was different than a reverse mortgage. It was different than all these other products out there.
Oh wow, and good timing, right? 2008 or 2008.
Exactly. So we were crushing it. I was about 4 weeks into the job. I was on my ramp quota. Everything's going well, and boom, everybody got invited into the office, and we all got laid off because the government pulled the funding. AIG got decimated in the whole the back into 2008. We got all laid off. So I was like, man, what am I gonna do? It took me 3 months to get that job. I was working at Starbucks to get there because I don't have money. I'm like, my parents are janitors. Absolutely. I gotta like work. I gotta figure this thing out. I finally got this job. I was super excited. Now I'm laid off. What am I gonna do? But then, this is the crazy part. This is why I fell in love with sales. This is why I do what I do today, and why I try to like coach people on the cold calling element. Right? Within a week, I had 3 job offers. This is in the middle of the last craziness, right? The last holy shit moment, right? Because I finally had experience, I had a recommendation. I could say I use Salesforce and all this other stuff. I had 3 job offers within 1 week from the time we got laid off to my next gig. And that's when I fell in love with sales.
That's because you're the one driving the metrics for them to get the next round of funding, right? You're getting the sales they so desperately need as a startup. So a good salesperson's always in demand, I think.
That's right. Like, Mark Cuban says it best, right? Like, if you can sell, you always have a job. I don't know what his exact quote is, but like he says this now, and they all talk about this, right? So if you can drive demand, you probably can get someone to pay you something, regardless of the environment, because there's always demand for something, right? So if you are good at that, you probably should hone that craft. And from that day, call it November 2008 forward, that's when that's what I've done for the last, I've just honed that craft. How do you?
I want to jump in here. Well, it's because this is pretty cool. So you got full circle going, really. You are teaching. You've written a book. You're actually coaching people on how to do this. So not only did you burst out of the nest with no role models and put together a fabulous career, but you actually are teaching, I think one of the most valuable skills in the world. Especially because your approach isn't to sell. Your approach is to find problems and solve them.
Oh, you're a student of the book already.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah, selling is not selling. There's no secret sauce. Just solve a problem or go away.
So my favorite part, I started picking. I'm like, okay, we're gonna have this conversation. I should just see what he's about, right? So my favorite part was the story you tell about, watches. Like a $10 watch, a $100 watch, and a $1 million watch. They all tell time, but they all solve different problems. And I was like, yeah, man, I could have told some people this story because it's just so. $10 watch tells time, right?
It tells time.
$100 watch
makes you look flashy at the club.
$1 million watch.
You're gonna beef out when you're in front of guys like Will.
That's the FU watch.
Yeah,
I don't need your money.
That's the power watch, right? I have power.
That's right. They all tell time.
So how did you go from I found something I like doing, I'm in the right place to do it, to get good enough at it that you're now coaching others on how to do it? What was the aha along that way, or is it just all 10 years you're learning a little as you go?
Yeah, I mean, I call myself a student of sales. My last several startups, if I can to put a title on my startup, I just say I'm a student of sales. That's what I do. It's a journey, right? Like you can't get enough knowledge in this world that we live in. If you adopt that growth mindset, you can kind of continuously adapt and innovate on what's working, what's not working. And for me, it's all about a process. So I'm a very big process person. So I try to think about like, here where we're at, this is where we're going, what are the stage definitions, exit criteria, and if I'm failing, having a really solid autopsy around, okay, well, if I did it wrong here, why? Am I targeting the wrong people? Am I saying the wrong things? If it is the right people, how do I adapt that message? If it's the wrong person, great. Let's like narrow down on that niche. And so, for me, it's all about that. I don't know really how to explain it. It's just how my mind is mailed, and I think that's probably because of my math background. I got this math mindset around the scientific method, around like it's always be testing. It's just hypothesis, conclusion, adaptation. I think that's what it is, but I don't know. I mean, it's just who I am.
Right. Now, you've got this concept of buckets, which I find interesting because you're trying to help people find a way to prioritize what they work on first, second, third, and fourth. There are 4 buckets, right?
Yep.
And what resonates with me as an industrial engineer, because it's all about efficiency, is you're trying to get people to work on the highest yield stuff first. And then, if they have time left over, they get down to that bucket 4 and do their homework for future, payoff. But how did you come up with that? And how long have you been kind of practicing this prioritization method?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So my second job after I had been let go from the exciting $50 million AIG company, I stumbled into ad tech, martech back in 2008. So I landed a job at a company called eSearch Vision. It's now ESV Digital. At the time, they had a platform plus some services. We were competing with the who's of pay-per-click. We have now been like acquired by Google and Adobe, and Marin Software is now public, and Kinshu Search. I don't know what they're doing these days, but like pretty big players, lots of money behind them. I stumbled into a bootstrapped French-based company that like had this eccentric founder. His name is Stanislav Divitori, a super smart guy, knows what he's doing. They're making a lot of money these days, but pay-per-click advertising, that's where I'm at. So in this world where you start to learn the math of marketing, or the whole equation of marketing, which is all about target, message, channel, timing. That's really where I got my roots. And I mean, it's everything I preach today, right? You got to target the right people in the right channel at the right time, and understand your math of sales or your math of marketing. Like, do I create $1 plus out of my dollar invested? And if I do, we'll keep investing. If I don't, we have to reinvest, right? And that's where like the aha moment that kind of clicked for me, which was math of sales, math of marketing doesn't lie. And you've got this equation that you're playing with that you have to, you can start to realize, right? Who am I targeting? What am I saying? Where am I saying it? And can I reverse engineer, as like Gary Vee says, all the way down to it? And that's really where I started to lay the roots at that stage.
I guess the thing I see founders struggle the most with is targeting. You have that idea of swimming in your lane, and they almost feel like if they don't go after everyone, they're giving up. Somehow they're not going to reach their potential. And really, it's a yield problem. I've only got so much time. I got to work on the high yield stuff because my day is going to be over anyway.
Yep.
So I don't know. What do you see founders struggle around that?
The list is your strategy. You can see this, right? The list is your strategy. And I think you kind of adopt, I don't know if you gave me a little bit of feedback on that or somebody else recently, but they're like, maybe kind of close. But, at the end of the day, like who you're targeting in the first place is your strategy. Whether you know or you don't know, it's still your strategy. Right. You got to start there. Okay. So let's assume these types of companies, these types of people within those organizations are who we want to target. And from there, you've got to start to the process. And you talked about the swim lanes, and I got the buckets, right? So it's all about, hey, how do we take them from you don't know me to there's some sort of level of awareness? This is marketing 101, right? And from there, do you want to take a meeting? And then ultimately, is there an opportunity? And ultimately, do we close? That's math of sales that I call it, math of sales. So you combine those two elements, buckets, math of sales, and you get into this position of, okay, as we're going to market, what we want to try to do is, Tim Ferriss talks about this all the time, right? Like, it's not about those who you're trying to debate and convince. It's trying to find the number of those who actually get it. And that element right there, right? That's a huge, I don't know if that answers your question, Will, but like,
No, it does.
I'm not trying to talk about those who can maybe understand it. I'm trying to focus on those who get it right now.
I got 80 hours.
Yeah. And then you got to reverse engineer it from those who get it now. And if they don't get it now, Tim Ferriss's component, like if they don't get it now, just nail that niche. And then once you've nailed that niche, maybe it's 1, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 100, maybe it's 1,000 people, who knows? But just nail that niche first. Because they don't get it, just move on. Okay, now we're ready for growth. Then you can expand that mechanism. And I think that's a problem. I don't know, you're an investor. I'm not that guy. I want to be someone like you at some point in the future, but maybe that's like the reverse mindset that a lot of people think about. But for me, that's a recipe for bootstrap success, not like blow a bunch of money for success. Because that's what I found has actually made money for people.
Well, Eva, what was our motto? What did I put at the top of the board every Monday?
I've actually tried to erase this scar.
Most money, least work, right?
Yeah.
Because it'd always be like, there's only so many of us in this room. What's the highest value stuff we can work on this week? We'll get to the rest of it later. Like, who cares?
That's true with B2C. It was really true with B2B. So I highlighted there's section on stay in your lane. Because you put a warning there. And do you mind if I read an excerpt?
Yeah, do it, please. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, most people think too broadly here, like talking about defining a swim lane, right? They want to include everyone who might benefit from their product. This is a bad idea and will lead to a lot of wasted effort because companies outside of your swim lane, they'll still take a meeting. They'll still watch a demo, but they will close at a much lower rate than your target customers, which results in a ton of wasted effort. So when I read that, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Like, I can't tell you how many demos we did for people that were never going to buy. And it was us. I mean, we pulled away from like some really sacred time. Like we were the coders. We had to stop that and go do a demo. And like just tightening the swim lane was so critical. Yeah. I mean, like this no fluff is like no kidding. Hey, so I have a question for you. Let's say that you had a like brand new bootstrapper, like, shiny, fresh out of bootstrap, epiphany, right? They've got this idea. It's going to require them to reach out to people. They've never done this before. Say they're another technical founder, right? Or a maker.
Yep.
And you had like 5 minutes in a room to try to like give them the core skill necessary. Like, what would you download into their brain?
I partner with Plug and Play because I actually put a couple companies through Plug and Play's ecosystem, being who I am and where I go through the ecosystem. And I had a course on outbound for startups. And the first thing I say is, who are your next? Like, I would just ask, like, who are your next 5 customers? Like, if you could wave this sounds crazy, right? Like everyone says, wave a magic wand. Who are your next 5 customers? Who are your next best customers? You could choose anybody in the world. Who are they? Name them. Go through that exercise right now. And when you go through that exercise, I know this doesn't answer your question directly, Eva, but like if I'm a founder and I'm trying to do this, right? Like go through this exercise of like, okay, I'm going to name 5 people. Now, when you name them, you have to start to think about those basic targeting criteria that we talk about in the swim lane. The why behind it. Why did you choose them? Was it because of industry, size, some sort of technographic, firmographic, whatever it might be. Like you have to like really get into that. But what I find most often where people struggle, it's not answering your question specifically, but I think it will help those who are listening that may not think about this the right way. They go too broad again. They're like, oh, I'm all the way out here. Okay. So I might say like, oh, I sold this one thing to some sort of company and I want Walmart and American Airlines and GE and Tesla. And you're like, well, what? Like, okay, I get it. So there's like a definition around like big public companies, maybe, right? Like, but like there's like a retailer and et cetera in that mix, and there's no commonality. There's no commonality. So you have to like keep asking those questions around the why, and that exercise will really help folks really narrow in on what they need to figure out. So I stole this is the age old marketing thing. It's called the beachhead strategy, right? Like, who are your customers today? Why? What was the problem they're trying to solve? What was their current state before they chose you? What was their potential options? Why did they choose you? What were their expected outcomes? What are the outcomes you delivered for them? And why are they still continuing to be with you today? Hopefully that's your best next customer, not someone who's churning. What are all those things that have like about that company and those situations? And what can you learn from those? And when you really start to analyze that, it doesn't take a lot of data, like 5, 10. This is probably, Will, you could probably talk to this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Why investors want to see like 10, 20, I don't know what the number is, 10, 20, like not outside of your network customers, before there's traction, this idea of traction. And maybe I'm way off base, but like, because I've never done it yet, but like, I would love to know, like,
I'm a big believer in it doesn't take a lot of data. What most people's mistake is that they fantasize that the current data is wrong and the next 10 people are going to be different. And so I'm just a big believer, like if I'm getting a strong no reaction or reluctance reaction, I immediately back up and go, well, my hypothesis must be wrong. Because people are people. It's not like if I call people in Atlanta, they're going to act different than if I call people in Dallas, right? But I think people they're too optimistic in that it's going to change if they just keep doing the same thing over and over. And I'll even see it with raising money. I'll be like, well, how many investors have you pitched? And someone will go 100. Well, how much money have you raised? And they'll go, $20,000. And how much are you trying to raise? Oh, I'm trying to raise $1 million. I said, well, at $200 a meeting, you're going to have a hell of a lot of meetings to get to $1 million. Like that's just too many. You're not going to do it. So either you're talking to the wrong person, you're saying the wrong thing, or it's the wrong effing idea. Like one of the three. I don't know which three it is, but one of those has got to be wrong.
And you just nailed on the two most important things in that equation: target, message. Target, message. Like you said, you're either talking to the wrong people or you're saying the wrong thing. And that right there is the hypothesis, at least, of my.
And the last one is you as a product is no good, right?
Well, that's exactly. No, man, exactly. So if you deploy the methodology that I talk about in Outbound Sales, no pull-off, then you'll learn that very quickly, right? Like your hypothesis is just off. You should just, delete yourself and go start something new or reinvent yourself. But target message are the most important things. And if you don't get enough traction, and then the math of sales as well, like you have to realize like how many activities does it take to get a conversation? How many of those conversations are actually generating real business opportunities, and not like, oh, I think, but no, like real business opportunities. And then eventually, hopefully you get to this stage with like, oh, they're actually paying me money.
Well,
they're paying me money. And then you reverse engineer that and you go, okay, do I have something that can scale? So like I go look out into the market and I do a TAM analysis and I go like, oh, well, there's other companies that look and feel this way.
But at the early stage, if you call someone with a problem that you solve, they will buy from you. It doesn't take that many human beings that have an actual problem. The problem is mistaking their discomfort for a problem. Like people, I love the mom test book because, his follow-up question I thought was brilliant too. If someone says, oh yeah, I got this problem. And then you go, well, how much time and money have you spent trying to solve it the last 6 months? Because if that answer is zero, they don't really have a problem because people are actively trying to solve their problems. So I don't know. It's just interesting. How many startups, how many companies in a segment do you think you need to talk to get a yield number? Is it 100? Like, what's a good statistical sample? If you're a founder and you've got I think these people have a problem, how many do I need to call to understand if I'm on mark or not?
That's a great question. So if you want to get really analytical, and it's going to like glaze over a lot of people's eyeballs right now, but like
just like an engineering rule of thumb.
Yeah. There's actually, you probably know this, Will. You probably know this. There's an old school statistical model, square root of TAM, or square root of size.
Yes, square root of the number. Yep.
Square root of sample. That's actually a really good model for getting a signal, right? So and in B2B, you want to build $100 million, let's call it B2B SaaS, right? You want to build a $1 million B2B SaaS company, 10,000 companies paying you $10,000 a year. Yeah, that's a good model, right?
Sure.
Square root of TAM, 100. Talk to 100 people. So to get a signal, like, do I have something here or not? And the other thing to think about within your math of a TAM is the old school buyer's pyramid. I used to have it on my whiteboard. I don't have it anymore. I can redraw it if you guys want it live. But there's a good book, Ultimate Sales Machine. He has this concept called the buyer's pyramid. So Chet Holmes talks about this. Is you guys? It's all being recorded right now.
Yes.
So Chet Holmes. This is not me, obviously. Somebody else. A lot of people are talking about this right now. The buyer's pyramid. Okay, so in any given market, you could be selling tomatoes, bananas, tires, spectacles, whatever, right? B2B software, security, whatever. Okay, in any given market, 3% are buying now, 6 to 7% are open to it, 30% are not thinking about it, 30% don't think they're interested, and 30% know they're not interested. You flip that over. You have a funnel. Buyers, I always say that. This hasn't been presented this way. This is how I always pitch it. Flip it over, you got a funnel. And the funny thing is, when you look at cold calling and the success metrics we do at Connect and Sell 50, 70 million dials a year. And the best world-class teams are usually converting cold calls at that like 8 to 10% metric, which is crazy because guess what? 8 to 10%, that's the math works, right? I think there's also a study by Forrester or one of them that also backs this up. They have a similar model like this, but this is generally in a given market, okay? And then
why do you think people get stuck trying to talk to the 90%?
I have no idea. I don't know. Will, why do you think?
I think I think it's that they think they're going to talk them into it, or they want to think they're persuaded. I'm like my thing, the whole genius of this whole thought process is screw it. Just talk to those 6% and, hang up the phone as soon as you can on the other 90.
That's right.
Like, I'm looking at that and like that.
Then follow up.
That bottom line, I love them. The ones that know they don't want it. Like that's a freaking great signal. Like next. Our biggest time suck we lost so much time on was they don't know, but they might be. And what we ran into was when our sales team when they confused activity for
outcomes.
Yeah.
Yes. Activity for outcomes. Biggest problem in the whole specialization of modern sales, right? So many dials a day. Yeah. And then even here's the real killer. How many meetings, which we talked about, Ava, right?
Right.
The meetings with the wrong people will kill you, right?
They'll eat up all the resources.
Golly. The meetings will kill an organization, and that's what everybody wants to optimize around. How can I get my cost per meeting down? How do I convert more meetings? That's the wrong metric. Small,
And
wrong metric.
and also just it's I feel like it mistakes splashing water, right? I mean, it's like a lot of activities happening, so we can record it. And the sales cycle is what generally people blame it on. It's right. It's going to take 9 months. Not I'm talking to people that aren't ready to buy now, so I'm wasting my time. I would flip it.
So Will, I'll challenge that a little bit. Like, but you would want to make sure that the right person is having that conversation first, right? So, like, if your salesperson, you're multi six-figure, maybe $1 million salesperson's having that conversation, yes, you're spot on. However, if you specialize, the fact that you might have a role that is having that conversation earlier in the funnel, then no, because like that's a marketing initiative. Like you should be using the voice to drive the funnel.
If you're further along, but as an early stage startup, you'll generally die if you spend too much time in the not thinking about it.
Oh,
like as you get bigger,
you will die. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You cannot spend time with those who are not going to cut a check tomorrow. You can't do it.
Now IBM can do it, but
yeah,
you
they
can't.
can do it.
No, but as like you said, if you're earlier stage, yes, exactly. And this is why so many books and thought leaders and gurus and coaches and all these guys, they don't get it right because there's never context around who you are, what's your situation, what are you trying to accomplish. And at the end of the day, this is why buckets is so important because it's a very simple methodology. You can deploy this tomorrow. You can put this into practice. You just do the thing. And if you just work your list, you're going to get into conversations with people who answer the phone way more efficiently than anyone else. And when you get to the conversations that people answer the phone, then you can get to the information around, are they here or not, right? Mm-hmm. But you can also determine who responds to email or who's active on social and do the same thing within your funnel. And at the end of the day, we should be focusing our time here, that 10%. If you are tracking above 10%, you're wasting your time. Get it? Right? You think you're crushing it? Guess what? You're not doing enough because you're spending too much time with the wrong people. If you're in this, it's not enough. Well, hey, you can maybe expand. That's where I use these numbers. And I'm a math guy, right? So I get very fascinated. People challenge me with this. And I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Obviously, you're a pretty big fan of the book now, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, am I outside of the realm here or am I fantasizing? I don't know.
No, I mean, especially based on having, we had to get other websites to sign up. Eva sold direct into, B2B. I had to raise a fund. And I tell you what, you could spend all day talking to rich people who aren't interested in putting money in a startup fund. And it's a complete waste of time. I mean, they'll meet with me. Oh, it's Will Bunker. He did this. I'll talk to him. But you're not raising jack shit from them. And that's okay. Like, that, it's not a knock on me or them. It's just, it'd be like trying to raise venture capital from our father.
Where was that? Where was that? They were not thinking about it, not interested. Where were they, right? Like maybe not thinking about it.
People who knew they wanted to do it.
So open to it or buying now, or you want to buy it?
That's it. Because otherwise I wasn't going to get the fund raised. I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't take enough meetings.
So you have those levers. You have now a North Star. You have a methodology to help you understand, okay, I've had this conversation. How do I identify who this individual is? Hey, guess what? It's not a perfect science, but let me put you in here. And anyone who says like, well, what about that missed opportunity? Guess what? They haven't done this for long enough because it's a numbers game. You got to prioritize. You have to prioritize your time. That's what I'm all about. That's what I'm all about at the top of the funnel.
So my favorite story here is we're pitching a billionaire up in Nashville. And he knows my partner. They went to school together. And we sit down, and 3 minutes into the pitch, he looks up and he says, what in the hell made you think I'd be interested in this? And I went, wow, that is a really interesting question. I said, well, tell me a little bit about your situation. I'm buying out my siblings from the family business. And I went, I will never go into a meeting again raising money unless I know the person is interested in what I'm doing. Like, screw this. I flew all the way to Nashville. Yeah, I talked to a billionaire, but he wasn't interested in what I was doing. So it was completely pointless.
How much money did that cost you? Not just cash,
A lot.
but time.
Yes.
And as an entrepreneur, we're talking about bootstrappers right now, right?
Yep.
Time is our biggest asset. We have got to eliminate the non-believers. We have to create a system in our minds that gets us into this niche of those who are the perfect fit. How do we find those quickly? That's what Buckets is all about. And whether you're an entrepreneur bootstrap with no money, or you're a multi-billion dollar, it doesn't really matter. You should probably still employ this, although I'm still trying to convince those with big pockets to realize it. Maybe you'll help me convince some of these folks at some point in the future. But there's a lot of waste. There's just a tremendous amount of waste. That simple principle.
Another hypothetical question for you. Okay,
Yeah.
so say I'm a bootstrapper, and I've kind of built up enough where I'm ready to hire my first salesperson. What do I look for? What qualities do I look for in a salesperson?
It's a great question. So I spent most of my time being that person. Right? I convince, that's where I spend my time. I am that person. Right? I'm the first hire you want. What you don't want is a person who's been a part of this big organization with a lot of resources and a lot of credibility and a lot of, right? You don't want that. You definitely don't want that. That's this recipe for disaster. Right?
I can tell. I'm just going to pitch it. I can say why. So if you're a bootstrapper and you're going to hire somebody, your first salesperson, why not to hire that person is because they've been cushioned inside of a system that hand delivers leads, and then they do a little bit and they hand deliver it off someplace else, but they're not actually like honing in on the yeses right now. So I've got a whole list of all the qualities I know I don't want, but what are the qualities that are really important? Like if you were to say, like your top 5 qualities that make you that person.
So for right off the gate, you need someone who is like passionately, genuinely curious about the thing that you're trying to solve for.
Okay, yeah.
Like number one, if they have no interest, no passion, no curiosity around whatever the heck you're trying to do, not going to be successful. So that's number one. Number two, you want somebody who has a growth mindset. Okay, like they may have been successful doing some things in the past. They may be passionately, generally, but if they don't have this idea that things can change and my vision of the future today could be different tomorrow, if they don't have that, like you need that, right? Okay, so passion, growth mindset. Number three, and you're putting me on the spot on this, so I have to think of 5.
That's okay.
Five's a lot. Yeah. Hold on. Number three, they are driven. Like you don't have to convince them to do the things that you hope they're doing. They're just doing it, right? Like they're asking you, not you asking them for that next thing, right? Whether that's an investment in new technologies or lists or whatever it might be, like they're coming to you say, hey, we need to be thinking about this, right? So drive. I'm trying to get to.
I think I got 4 and 5 people. So watching you, here's what I say.
Okay.
Process oriented.
Yes.
So
nailed process. I would actually maybe put that up top, but you're right. We're talking about 5. Yep. Process is huge.
And the 5th one, which I would add, which is really closely related to the 3rd one you had, is like self-driven. Like it's like this empowerment. It's this like rather than saying here's all the things that are missing.
It's like inside you just want to do it. I don't need you to tell me, Eva. I don't need you to. We together want to get there. You're right.
I'm not failing.
What is that? What do we call that? What is that?
Agency. I call it agency. I call it like the ability to say this is what needs to be done, and rather than find the excuses, find the way to it. Right.
Together as a team. It's not a problem. It's just the reality that we have to address. You're spot on. I think that's huge. I would put that up there too. It's hard You nailed it with 5. Actually, I thought it was really hard, but you just nailed it. Those are the 5 things. So that piece, and I think that's probably one of the biggest problems we all face as entrepreneurs. We're talking about bootstrappers. Is this dysfunction in our head that we think that the people we bring on board are as passionate and excited and are bought in as much as we are.
Yeah.
Because you can't replicate that. Like, it's not their thing. They are not the entrepreneur. And I don't know what the gap is. I don't know what the percentage change is. I think there's people out there that can be number 2s and 3s and 4s or whatever. But at the same time, that gap is what makes it really hard, because, I wake up every day at this hour and I work my ass off to this hour, and there's no hours in my day, but like, that's my vision and world, and like, regardless of the compensation, that's what I'm trying to do, and trying to find those people is almost impossible as you scale.
I think,
you beyond a certain point, right?
I mean, I feel like we had great teams, though. I mean, most people want to make a difference in the world, and if they're not excited at your company, it's either you're doing something wrong around the leadership, or they're just a bad fit. I mean, but I felt like we had pretty good luck, Eva. Like, we had a great team at One and Only, I thought.
I think that the people you chose, like there was a sorting where the people that
Sifting them through.
It wasn't like this, the sorting hat, but there was a certain level. Well, think part of it was this, Will. It was online dating before online dating was considered safe, or even, something you could talk about at church. And it was in Dallas, Texas. And so the people you found were the ones that were outside the cookie cutter anyway.
Right. They weren't working at daddy's company at all. No. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for sharing with us. And we're going to have a link to your book. The best thing about the book is it's very concise. You don't have to read 500 pages to get the point. And
when you say
really
no fluff, you
material.
mean no shit.
Yeah, no fluff.
Absolutely, which I appreciate. I'm reading a book full of fluff right now. It's killing me. Need more like yours. How can people reach you, Ryan? Do we just point them to your website, or what's the best way?
Yeah, these days I actually have a website now, Reisert Consulting.
Okay.
On LinkedIn, I'm very active, so you can look me up, Ryan Reisert. I think my / is like sales development rep. Still going back, trying to optimize for that. Or you can literally call me anytime, 415-994-0110. That's literally my cell phone number, and I accept it.
So,
I miss you, I'll call you back.
Who's like somebody that's not top 3%, like somebody that has a problem who would best benefit from calling you? Who is that?
Yeah, you're an ambitious entrepreneur trying to grow your business. You really passionately, genuinely believe you have a product or service that's going to like disrupt the market. If you talk to me, I'm going to help you disrupt the shit out of that market in the most cost-effective way possible. We should have a conversation so you don't go and waste a bunch of money hiring the wrong people at the wrong time, solving the wrong problems to get your idea to market. Like, that's the person that I can serve the most. And then outside of that, if you've already got something to market, I could probably make you about 50% more efficient by having a conversation with you as well. But the person that I serve the most is that person who's really trying to be cost effective with their go-to-market, because I will help them be really smart as they think about target message channel timing, as we talked about today.
And he's helped a mutual friend of ours, and who raves and raves about him, Scott Levy, which is how we met.
Oh, hey, cool.
Fantastic. Scott's a good guy. Result Maps, great app to also be much more efficient with how you think about things and you organize your teams. And great guy there.
Well, it was great, Ryan. Look forward to watching you with progress, and I'm sure even I'll be steering some entrepreneurs your way that need help with this stuff.
Man, you're solving one of the biggest problems, right?
I hope to think so. Like, that's why I'm here. I like to solve big problems. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, because you design it, you build it, and you sell it. If you can design the hell out of it, you can build the hell out of it. But if you can't close that sales gap, it's all gonna fall apart.
But here's the thing, and I'll leave it with this, right? Most people think about sales in the lens of I've got you across the table. We're in this conversation. We all know each other now. It's conventional. We're okay to share some stuff. We're going to share some stories. We're going to joke about a few things just like we did today. But the hardest part is not that. It's actually getting to that. It is actually getting to that. What I mean by picking up the phone, cold calling, advertising, whatever it might be, is that's the problem that I spend my time trying to solve. Is how do I get people to actually start conversations, real conversations with entrepreneurs who are solving real problems? And that is actually a challenge for most people, and all the things we talked about today. So, I'm not a guru for convincing you to go buy from me. But what I spend my time thinking about is how do I convince you to at least spend some time with me at all? And
Right.
that's a problem that most people don't think about. That's the problem that I'm helping entrepreneurs solve for.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Ryan.
Ryan, thank you.
Yes, thanks for having me.
See
Really
ya.
appreciate it.